Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, and today's video will be doing a review on a couple of EasySMX Switch controllers to see how they stack up against your standard Switch Pro controllers and to see if these really are the best budget Switch Pro controllers. But with that said, let's jump into it. Alright, so we've got the two controllers out. Again, these are a couple of controllers from EasySMX. They actually sent them to me for review, but this video is definitely not sponsored, so my opinions are certainly my own on whether I would recommend these or not. But they gave me a couple different versions. One of them is this EasySMX T37. This is a little bit more budget option, and then they have their higher end model, which is the T39 Pro. They're both wireless controllers, but they also can work with a wire. Seems like that's going to be included in the box here as well. When it comes to some other differences, looks like the joystick on this T37 model is considered a K-Silver 3D joystick, and then on the T39 Pro option, it's considered the Hall effect joysticks. I'm not 100% sure of the main differences between those, but once we open them up, I'll be able to tell a little bit more on the differences, how they feel, and then obviously once we start using them, I'll be able to see the differences as well. Some other differences is that this T37 option does not have linear triggers, where the T39 option does. Looks like this T39 Pro also has the option to program some stuff on it, so that's pretty cool. Also seems like this T39 Pro does have a longer battery life. The T37 at this time does have a couple colors it comes in. It has this mint green color as well as a purple color. And then at this time it does seem like this T39 Pro just has this one color. They are technically for Switch, but it looks like they do also both work on PC as well as Steam. So I'm interested to see how they function there as well. I don't play a ton of Steam games or PC games, but it's always nice to have a controller that can sync with the PC as well. In terms of price difference, at the time of filming this, the T37 one retails for $22.99, and then this T39 Pro option retails for $32.99. So definitely significantly lower than the standard Switch Pro controller. So with that said, let's jump into unboxing these two controllers, and then I'll jump into how my first impressions are with them, and then I'll go and do a bit more on my thoughts after using them for a while, and then dive into my full review and see how these compare to your standard Switch Pro controller and if I feel like they're worth picking up. But let's start off with this EasySMX T37 option. Again, this is the more budget-friendly option, but seems like it's still going to have that Switch Pro controller feel to it. Let's see if there's anything in the box. Just a giant instruction manual. I won't go through that, but again, kind of a cool mint green color with the controller. And then it looks like it also has a charging cord here, USB-C. So hopefully that's compatible with other chargers I have. First impressions with this, it's definitely lighter than a Pro controller, but it does have these nice grips on the side, kind of giving it that same feel like a Switch Pro controller, which I'm definitely a fan of. Joysticks seem responsive, not too tight, not too loose. D-pad has a nice feel to it, definitely clicky. The buttons are clicky as well. And then the back buttons seem good. They're not really pressure sensitive or anything, just your standard clicky buttons with that. And then you've got your plus and minus here. And I'm not sure what these other options are, but we'll definitely be able to see that when we actually start using it. And then it's got the cool 1, 2, 3, 4 lights here as well. But again, this is the T37 option. Let's jump in and open up this T39 Pro, see how I feel like that compares. Again, this one is the little bit more expensive option, still significantly less than your standard Switch Pro controller, but got the guide here for that. Same USB-C cable for charging. Now again, it has this cool blue color, and it's kind of almost like a clear shell over the blue, which I think is pretty cool. Joysticks feel a little bit looser, but more fluid. I'm not sure if that's actually good or bad when I'm playing though. It doesn't have those grips on the side though, So I'm a little disappointed with that. I like that aspect, but then this kind of feels more like an Xbox Series X type controller versus maybe like a Switch controller. Buttons, clicky, kind of feel about the same. It's got kind of one light in the middle. It doesn't necessarily have the four. When it comes to the back and the buttons, these ones kind of feel more pressure sensitive compared to the other ones. So that's definitely a little bit different, but it still has a nice feel to it. Like I said, kind of feels more like an Xbox controller than maybe a Switch controller. Again, you got the plus and minus buttons here, like your standard Switch controller, but it still has a good feel. Like I said, just no grips on the side, but other than that, seems like it's pretty nice and it has a good feel to it. A little bit more heavy. Oh, looks like I already turned on the syncing, so it's trying to sync up. My Switch is definitely upstairs though, so I don't think it's gonna connect by any means, but compared to the two, this one feels a little bit more hefty than this one, and this again is a little bit lighter than the Switch Pro controller, but it does have the nice textured grip like you can see here, so I'm definitely a fan of that on the controller. So far my first impressions, they both seem like great controllers. They have a great feel, they're very ergonomic. They definitely feel like quality controllers. But with that said, let's jump into the rest of the review after we've had some time to play with these controllers. Now another couple differences between the two, this T39 Pro option actually has NFC support, so it will function with Amiibos, which is really cool. Not necessarily a feature that I use a lot, but it does have that built into this controller as well. Both controllers do have turbo options that you can set on them as well. Now as far as using the controllers and how do I feel they actually stack up to a Pro controller, I've been using both of them quite a bit, and I think they're both great options. It just kind of depends on a personal preference, which one you like best. One thing to note about these middle buttons here is that they're a little bit closer together than the standard Switch Pro controller. So I often found myself reaching just a little bit to hit those plus and minus buttons. Obviously not the end of the world, something you would just get used to, but for playing hundreds of hours on the standard Pro controller, I found that little bit of a difference, slightly noticeable. Again, obviously not a deal breaker. I also did like this option on the T37 that has the player count listed in the lights. This is another feature on the standard Pro controller. I just like that option. Again, it's not available here on this T39 Pro option. Once again, certainly not a deal breaker by any means, but I did like that feature. Another thing that I'll say is that I do really enjoy these grips on the T37 option. Again, this T39 option did feel a little bit more like an Xbox style controller from the Xbox One that did lack that grippiness that the new Xbox Series S controllers have. Again, certainly not a deal breaker by any means, but that was one thing that I noticed. I also found that the joysticks on this T37 option were a little bit tighter and felt a little bit more like the standard Switch Pro controller, where these joysticks on the T39 Pro option were a little bit looser, a little bit more sensitive, and it just had a different feel. Again, certainly not a deal breaker by any means, and would definitely be something you would quickly get used to, but I just found that these were a little bit more loose, which made them a little bit sensitive when I was playing games like Fortnite. Now I know this is a Switch Pro controller review, but these do function on Steam as well. And I found that you can play them wirelessly, but you do need some calibration when you do so. However, if you use the included USB-C cables, they hooked right up to my computer automatically and functioned just fine in Steam. But I did find this experience with the T39 Pro controller a lot better when it came to Steam and connecting and just immediately working. So if you're using them for Steam, you probably want to check out this T39 Pro option. But I do think both controllers are a great option for the Nintendo Switch. They could definitely be an awesome budget option instead of a full-on Switch Pro controller, and they feel almost exactly the same. If you don't really care about the Amiibo function, I think this T37 option would likely be a great choice for you. Or if you like the extra grippiness on the side of the controller here, you might prefer this one. but both are definitely great options, and I think could be great alternatives to a Switch Pro controller, or if you just like the overall style, I think these could be great options as well. And like I said, they both work on Steam and PC as well. They were also pretty easy to hook up to the Switch system. Once my Switch was on, I just had to plug in the USB-C cord, and they both paired right away to the system. The only aspect that was a little bit challenging is that you have to hold these buttons down for quite a bit of time until they initially sync. And so you'll need to go into the controller settings, make sure that's open, and then hold these buttons down for quite a bit of time before they'll initially sync with the system. But again, nothing overly complex. Once I plugged in the cords, they were paired immediately. Then it was just a matter of getting them to function wirelessly with the Switch. But overall, I was definitely pleasantly surprised with both of these controllers. I do think they're great alternatives to the Switch Pro controller. And if you're more on a budget, looking for a cheaper option, I think either of these could be a great choice. And if you're looking for that extra functionality to be able to use Amiibos, this controller does have that as well. So again, if you did want to pick up either of these controllers, there'll be a link in the description below where you can do so. And that would also help support the channel as well if you decided to do that. But again, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.